Shabbat Shalom. So I was thinking about tonight and how it is Christmas and Shabbat. And I come from a multi-faith family, so I have Christmas memories. And one of them is when I was a little girl, we would go to my uncle's house for Christmas, and afterwards we would take a walk through the neighborhood and see all the Christmas lights. And my sister, when she was little, she would look at all the different houses, and the ones with lights, she'd say, Christian, Christian, the house without lights, Jewish, Christian, Jewish, Christian, Jewish. It was this binary way of seeing the world, that the ones with the lights around their houses were the Christians, and the ones with the darkened houses were the Jews. Sort of like who's in and who's out. And also, in this little kid way, it was a way of searching for belonging. And I think Christmas can kind of feel like that for us, right? Like everyone else is having the best time ever with their shining lights and their pretty cookies and Santa. And the Jews, we're just trying to get along, And I think we're the queens of holidays because we have so many. And even though this one isn't ours, we still have rituals for it. Like, how many of you right now are eating Chinese food? Like, that's what you do on Christmas. You eat Chinese food. Or maybe you have a plan for the movies tonight or tomorrow. I know where I grew up, you went skiing on Christmas, that there were rituals we had. Or maybe you just have plans with your friends or your other family members to celebrate it. That we try, even in this season of inclusion and exclusion, we still try to sort of make it a little bit of our own. And I think it's a way of trying to carve out a feeling of belonging in a system that screams in this season, you're not one of us. And I think we learn that liminal stage of not one of us and not belonging from a really young age. I took my child to the doctor the other day, and the nurse was taking her blood pressure, and she said, "Are you ready for Christmas?" And my kid looked at me, and I said, "Well, we're Jewish." And so the nurse said, "Oh, are you looking forward to your holidays?" And my kid was very gracious and said, "Yeah, I look forward to holidays." And it was awkward and kind of plasticky, and yet this thing that we learn from a very young age, that it's not that someone else's holidays take away from our own, but there's this booming, jingle bell singing, red and green waving, eggnog drinking, cinnamon cookie smelling, big belly ho-ho-hoing, pulsing in the ether saying, you're not in a house that's lit with all of this. And we're like, yeah, we know. And also, it can feel strange. At least it does for me. It's not envy, but sort of like a party that you don't need to go to, but you still weren't invited to. There's this unsettling nature to it that a lot of us are just sort of waiting for the season to be over. And the thing about belonging is we get in big trouble when we try to fill the void or try to fix it or force our own place into it. Instead of recognizing that the longing for belonging is coming from outside pressures whose solution really can only come from within. I think that path of belonging is both nowhere and everywhere, and it is so magnified for Jewish folk in this season. And once you do take root in a space of belonging, once you sort of own where you are, like, yeah, I've got Chinese food and a movie going on, or yeah, I love that the whole world is quiet right now and I get to do my own thing. Whatever it is, once you kind of find your place in that space of belonging, you get to blossom into your own authenticity. You got to just own it. Brene Brown has a wonderful quote, and she wrote, "Don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you don't belong, because you'll always find it. Don't walk through the world looking for evidence that you're not enough, because you'll always find it. Our worth and our belonging are not negotiated with other people. We carry those inside our hearts." So this year, I took that quite literally. And I imagined myself as that little girl taking that walk on Christmas and seeing the house that's lit, and the house that's not lit, and the house that's lit, and lit, and lit, and the house that's not. And I decorated my house this year just horribly, like just totally ostentatious. There's a 7.5 or 8 foot menorah, inflatable menorah on my driveway, and like laser lights of dreidels that are all over the garage door, and a bench on the bench that's life size that like my kid tries to sit on all the time. There's blue lights. I mean, it's a lot of work, and I did it because I needed a little ridiculousness this year, but also I liked thinking of that little Jewish girl walking down the street and been like, hey, that one's me. And in a world where it can be really scary to be outward about your Judaism, or in a world where like Christmas is here and Jewish is here and we don't decorate like that and we're other, to say like, I kind of want part of the cheer, but it's going to be mine. I wanted to do it for that little girl. And I wanted to be proud and ridiculous and own my desperation to fight the darkness right now. And I know I'm not alone. I read this article that said that Christmas lights purchases are up 194% this year. 194%. There is a record number of Christmas lights purchases of all time, and that some major chains started selling them in August because people thought that decorating for Christmas just made them happier. And it's not just Christmas. Halloween candy was up $2 billion this year. This need, this communal need to be a source for or make up for the hopelessness, the fear, the darkness, this desire to celebrate and force the light into a place of darkness is an effort to remind ourselves that it's not just me alone in my own wilderness and my own darkness, but that it's us. It's us in the wilderness. It's us flailing in the darkness. And also, that just as potentially lost or marginal that I might feel in this season, I do belong to something bigger than myself. And that bigger something, that thread, that community, that continuity of shared understanding, it does sustain us through the darkest of seasons. I think a lot about Adam Harishon, the Adam in the garden. There's this wonderful midrash where he's having his first season of darkness in the Garden of Eden. He realizes that the days are getting shorter and the night is coming sooner and sooner. And he thinks, oh my gosh, I must have done something wrong. I must have sinned, that God has decided that this creation experiment is done. And I don't know what I did, but I guess it's over. And every darker day, and every day the darkness comes sooner, he only understands that it's not going to get lighter. It's only going to get darker. How true that is, right? Of so many of us. That we look at something difficult, we look at COVID, we look at any of this stuff and we say, oh my gosh, it's only going to get darker. And so in Adam's case, in that story, he starts to pray. And he repents, and he has like a second Yom Kippur, basically. And suddenly it starts to switch, and the light gets a little lighter. And he thinks, oh my gosh, I repented and it worked. Until he understands that the act of faith is that even as you know that things will get darker, that things will be more difficult, that it not necessarily gets better, that somewhere there's faith, that there's a possibility for light. And that's our inheritance as a people. This faith that even in the darkest of days, even when we feel most marginal, even when we feel disconnected, that we're part of a people who believes it's worth believing in light. Last year at this time, we thought there was light on the horizon. We were Adam before the solstice came. And we thought, oh my gosh, thank goodness it's the end of 2020. See you later, it's all going to get better. And now we're at the exact same point in 2021, and we're like, wait, this looks like 2020 again. And it's so disheartening, knowing that COVID isn't something that's going to go away, or that we're going to conquer it with one vaccine. And even with every new hope, new leap, new light, a vaccine, a booster, that it's available for children under 5, these are miracles. These are genuine miracles, but it doesn't take care of everything. It's a wave of hope that is always almost countered by waves of fear. And perhaps that's the new normal, or maybe it's the original normal of Adam's time, of seasons of darkness and light, of possibility, of hope. That we live in an ocean of waves which drown us, revive us, and the sandy shore where it's all calm and the fears behind us may not actually be in our near future. Rather, it's a wilderness of waves and surrender and finding our own ways. We don't like the darkness. None of us do. But the wilderness, that time sitting in the garden, this unknown, this liminal space, this marginality, it makes us face who we are. And that the light and belonging and connection have a measure of choice to it, to shine brightly, whether it's in inflatable menorahs or brightly colored lights, singing out, reminding us that we do belong, that we are resilient, that light and love and joy and belonging that we want from the outside world starts first with us. Shabbat Shalom.